All right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for a discussion about entrepreneurship and family. We are so glad you are participating in this year's Family Weekend activities and look forward to a great conversation today. My name is Lauren Dunning, and I am a member of the team at the J. Orrin Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute here at Arizona State University. The Edson E+I Institute at ASU connects you to the information, resources, and people that help you turn your ideas into reality. Today's conversation is very close to my own heart, as my own experience with entrepreneurship began in my childhood when my dad made the decision to begin his own company. We have the opportunity to hear multiple perspectives of what it means when business is personal from different points of view. And before we begin, I wanted to make sure to note a few practical things. So it might be that you've been on Zoom before, it might be that this is your first webinar. Regardless, we're happy you are here, and we want to make sure that you know you have the opportunity to ask questions throughout our conversation today. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a panel, and one of those options has a Q&A section that allows you to answer or ask any questions throughout the time. Some of those we might answer conversationally, others we might answer by typing in a response, but we really look forward to answering any questions you have and participating in discussion today. So with that, if you have any questions, please type them in and we look forward to answering them. And I'd like to welcome our panelists and ask for a brief introduction from everyone. So to start, if either Linda or Quinn can start with introducing themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Quinn Stalkup. I'm a student here at ASU. I go to the West Campus. My major is global management and my minor is public relations and strategic communications. For work, I work as an Edson Entrepreneur Innovation Catalyst. So I help other students find their passion within entrepreneurship. This is my mom.
Hi everyone, I'm Linda Roccuti. I'm the Senior Director for the Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. I am a longtime educator. I was in K-12 education. I did that for years. And then I went into a ed tech company and started my own ed tech corporation. And then from there, I transitioned into having my own business, which is a coffee house and a bakery and a cafe and a retail store. And that's still going today. I've had that for 11 years. So really have an incredible passion about entrepreneurship. And I believe that it's such a complex and exciting time right now that entrepreneurship really needs to rise to the top. And our whole family, including my husband, has 2 companies. I have my own, and we raised our daughters, both of our kids, inside of that kind of entrepreneurial environment. And it's a very different experience. And we're happy to be here today to share that with you.
All right, and then Adrian, I think we need you to unmute, please. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. I forgot. I was so excited to talk. I forgot to unmute myself. But hi, guys. I'm excited to be here. My name is Adrian Brown. As a marketing manager at USAA, I manage a portfolio of over 30 tactics where we target members who have expressed interest in our auto loan products, and we help them along in that journey. My job is to monitor performance of these tactics and to find opportunities for optimization while creating an awesome experience for our members. Prior to USAA, Chef Michael and I, have been business partners, and together we've created a number of unique and great concepts over the years. We've also introduced our kids to business, where they often worked in the business with us. Sometimes kicking and screaming, and sometimes they found the lessons quite valuable. But what we found, Michael and I, is that when we have combined our talents and skill sets in the right places, synergy happens. And that's what we would like to share with you today, those moments where synergy happened.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for inviting Adrian and myself. We're so excited. We're so excited to meet Linda and I want to say the Mighty Quinn, but that's a movie, I believe. But here I am, Chef Michael. I'm very happy to be here. This is an opportunity to share my passion for the hospitality industry and business in general. At the young age of 14, I realized that this was my lot in life. And so I set out to do everything I could education-wise and experience-wise to eventually own my own restaurant. 1989, we opened Michael's Backstreet Cafe, the first full-service Cajun Creole restaurant in the tri-state area. We got a one-star review from the New York Times, which is like a Michelin star, and it became a standing room only place. So from that, we started Jamborito's Cajun Grill Express food truck, and that's sort of like a Cajun style Chipotle, of which we're looking to start our first brick and mortar and then eventually go regional with that concept. I've also founded Dr. Food Cost, which is a company that is a restaurant consulting company helping other restaurants to be successful, and not just be successful, but have a life while doing so. I've also decided to put a 30-year recipe out there for people to purchase, my miracle seasonings. And we started off with just one salt-free seasoning that makes everything taste great. But eventually we're going to have about 8 or 9 lines of product. One thing I'm very proud of also is, from a business perspective, is a concept that I developed called STEP methodologies, which stands for scalable, time-saving, and efficient and profitable. So I go around preaching those terms anytime that you have a business concept. All of your framework should fall underneath that scalable, time-saving, efficient, and profitable model. I am the life partner and husband to Adrian Brown, and the father of 2 lovely daughters who have also adopted, or I should say, got that fire to have their own businesses, and they're both doing well. I thank you for having me, and I hope that we can share some meaningful thoughts with you guys. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Well, I think I saw Linda already nodding her head when you said you have a framework of success. And so we'll get to a little bit more of what that looks like. But I think to start, if we can really kind of maybe share a story briefly that helps frame your experience as an entrepreneur. And we'll be using the same order throughout most of the conversation, since most of these conversations cut across everyone's perspective. So to start, Quinn, to put you on the spot, and I know it kind of ropes in some ways to what your family has done, if you can maybe share some of your experience being entrepreneurial as an ASU student and even before you became a Sun Devil.
Yeah, so growing up in my mom's coffee shop, there's a kind of like, I wouldn't say pressure, but a lot of like pushing towards kind of succeeding in entrepreneurship and kind of thinking, branching out and thinking of different ideas to develop. So my sister and I have been painting ever since I was 7, and she's 5 years younger than me, so she started when she was a little bit older. But we have tons and tons of paintings all around the house, too many to frame. So my mom was like, well, what can you do with all these? I was like, I have no idea. She's like, well, you can try to think of how you could sell them in the store. And so I was like, okay. So we came up with a plan to create greeting cards. So we would photocopy our paintings onto cards. And then my sister and I would, on the weekends, we'd bag them up, seal them, and then we'd sell them in my mom's coffee shop. And I started doing that when I was about 13. So that's kind of my personal experience with entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we kind of live, eat, breathe every single day in every capacity, because when you're an entrepreneur, it permeates everything that you do. And just to kind of give you a little background on Copper Q itself, I was in an ed tech company, traveled all over the country, did very well, was very successful, but my kids were small and I really wanted to spend more time at home. So I was trying to figure out a way that I could stay home in my small town community and raise my kids in a way that I loved, which was all about family. Sitting down to dinner, food was super important in our family, and it became a passion for me. And so Copper Q is the name of our store. My daughter's name is Quinn, so not so much of a coincidence with the Q part. So we were able to create something, literally sitting down in the kitchen saying, what would I want to share with other families? How could we create a central piece to our community that expressed our values and our beliefs as a family, which is being together. And so we created a central show kitchen in our store, and we have, seats all around it, and we do cooking demonstrations for free. And other families just kind of adopted our store, and they would come in and sit in the same chair. It was kind of like Cheers, the old TV show where you sat in the same stool every time you came in. And it became just, our family became our customers, and our customers looked at us like family. And so we had people that would propose in our store. We were in their, all of their photographs in their books at home, so it just became like a central place, and that was our intent. So to be able to share our family with our community and make a really safe, great place to be and experience food in a way that was positive and real, I think that became a real strong centering point for our family. And sorry, Quinn, but she had to be raised in that. I remember her sitting on the floor learning to read. I mean, just, it's like those pieces when you're in an entrepreneurial, area, everybody functions that way. And we didn't think it was weird. We didn't think it was strange. We even changed some of our family traditions that my kids have grown up thinking that while other people are digesting their Thanksgiving dinner at home and watching football, our family went into the store and we flipped our store to Christmas every Thanksgiving evening. So my kids grew up, decorating trees on Thanksgiving night in the store, and that isn't really how other people do it, just so you know. Yeah, so yeah, yeah, it's very fun.
Thank you for sharing that story. Adrian, do you have any you would like to share?
Yes, absolutely. So as Chef Michael mentioned, we are college sweethearts, and so as when we were in college, he would always share with me his dream of opening his own restaurant. And, we would always brainstorm different business ideas. And so to raise money, we started like a breakdancing, business, basically, where I would book parties, for kids, because at that time breakdancing was big. And he would go and do the breakdancing parties. He would dance at these parties. He would teach them how to moonwalk. He would do Michael Jackson impersonations. And then I would, be the one to promote and book, parties from those parties. And so that's how it really got started. And then, but our first restaurant concept was Michael's Backstreet Cafe in New Jersey. We went in underfunded. So we were in a cul-de-sac in a bad neighborhood where the gates went down at night. And so we had to figure out a way to bring people to that location. And so, and basically we miscalculated, what it would take to market a restaurant like that. But what I found was what we didn't have in budget, we dug deep within ourselves to create something unique and different. And so I read a lot of guerrilla marketing and PR books and followed the advice of some of the authors in those books. I combed the newspapers to find out where the events were going to be, and got him into those events. And so eventually we had people coming from all over the tri-state area trying our restaurants. And so we found that when we each focused on our respective areas of expertise and passion, we were able to really excel and do great things. Within 3 years, we grew the business to over $1 million in annual sales by really leveraging our skill sets and using them in the right places, all on a shoestring marketing budget. And we didn't know it at the time, but we were actually implementing a lot of agile innovation strategies. For example, Chef Michael he had taken paint and put his feet, shoes in the paint and walked it from the restaurant to the sidewalk to direct people to the restaurant. Or, if we found out that, there was going to be a show of someone was going to do a rendition of Billie Holiday, we would prepare flyers, and as he likes to say, we would pop out of bushes when people would come out and give them the flyers, and have a dinner commemorating that event, and we have people coming into the restaurants. And when we did our ads, we would write them like they were reviews. And so we did a lot of things like that. And so eventually when the kids came along, they got introduced to basically the idea of business. The oldest one really got, when she was really a baby, she was at the restaurant with us because we didn't really have anyone to watch her from home. So we had a babysitter come to the restaurant. But eventually, when they got older, they were working a restaurant. And so instead of having fun on the weekends, like most of their friends, like your daughter, they were working, and when people were out at festivals having fun, they were working the festivals. And so, but it's really benefited them today because, they have been able to parlay there's those skill sets into great jobs or companies for themselves.
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps just listening to all of that because this is real. This is like really what happened. I mean, I can tell you story after story. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a screenplay because some of this stuff just has to be put in a book and then eventually a movie, a screenplay, a sitcom, whatever. I mean, I can tell you the characters of which, Linda, you probably can imagine the people you have hired, and they were all different characters. And oh my gosh, but the question that I'm being asked is, what was it that framed my experience as an entrepreneur? So, and this story will never change. It's always been the one that really hits deep with me. And that's when I first got my first job. And forgive me, I get a little emotional with it, but my mother has saw me working for the first time. And I was sweeping and mopping the floor of this restaurant. And she had told me that, hey, I can't afford to buy you school clothes. So because we had 7 kids and so forth, and she was divorced. And so I was like, don't worry, Mom, I'm gonna go down and get a job. So I marched 3 miles up the road and found this guy sweeping the front sidewalk of his restaurant. And I said, I can do that for you. And he said, "Oh, really? Okay." And he said, well, come on down Monday and I'll see what I can do. So Monday, 4 years later, there were many, many Mondays. He hired me as a dishwasher and then eventually, peeling potatoes and eventually a short order cook, which I think is essential to any type of culinary desire that you have. Short order cooking is really a good way of learning how to prepare food fast. And then, like I said, when my mother came by and saw me working, it was like the skies and the heavens opened up and said, this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And at that time, I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, I got to own the place. I was talking with God, I got to own it. And so he said, okay, well, if you want to own it, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to work in this business. So I went to eventually from the short order cook. And the proudest moments in those situations were cooking for the local police officers and the local teachers and stuff. And they would say, oh, that was a pretty good BLT. I was like, cool. So I went on to manage a Burger King. And from there, I went and got a degree in hotel and restaurant management. I worked for Hilton International, Hyatt Regency, and Marriott. I was actually a manager of a restaurant at the World Trade Center Hotel, which is no longer there. It's called Ground Zero now. And then eventually when I was 28, went to, actually, no, I'm sorry, that was 26, went down to New Orleans with my wife, knocked on some doors, asked some very well-known chefs if they would teach me how to cook Cajun Creole, of which I had already been pretty well versed in French, Italian, and of course my ethnicity, which is Trinidadian and so forth. So there's a little bit of that in there as well. So after that, we came back a year later, opened up Michael's Backstreet Cafe. And it turned out, again, this is a pioneer situation. It was a new concept to being introduced. Cajun food hadn't been really out there for a very long time, except for Paul Prudhomme, who brought it out to the rest of the nation. So, and that's really what happened to me. That's how I got into this business. And I haven't been looking back since.
So exciting. Well, thank you all for sharing. I know, Linda, actually, in your last answer, you helped answer the next question. So I will ask you the second half of the question since the first one already came up. But really, we're looking at this question of what are some of your family values? So as Linda mentioned with COP or Q, it's togetherness. And then how did they contribute to your business success? And in that situation, I think it actually framed what you decided to create, which is incredibly exciting. So Michael, Adrian, think of that question of the family values and how it connects to your work. But for Linda and Quinn, I'd say the question really becomes then as a follow-up, how do you measure success in your life? Now that you've created these things with these values in this way, what does that look like as you kind of continue to measure the success of your life?
The first one you did.
Sure. So I'm just going to kind of back up a little bit. I think that there are some other values that I think are very important in our family, especially in the business, that I have learned personally. And I think it's giving back to the community is very important for our family and working hard. And we also care a lot about the environment. To me, I think those are the top 3 that I have learned. So I know my family gives back to the community at every opportunity. My mom, every decision she makes for the business ultimately is how she can give back in any way. So she, like the coffee that we purchase donates for every pound of coffee we buy, it's 10 pounds of food to a local food bank. So that's just one example of how my mom finds ways to give back to the community. Another about kind of working hard is that there's always going to be problems that we face, whether they're small or large, and just kind of working through them as a family is very important to me. And that's something that I have learned. And I have learned also through working at the store as a barista, kind of becoming a family with my coworkers and learning to kind of rely on each other when you're dealing with customers, especially in a tourist town where it can be really busy and you get crazy people all the time. So kind of learning to work with each other and working hard and make sure you're doing your part is really important.
Those are great points. Family for us is the center of everything. And I think really understanding that it's hard work and that there is no plan B for a lot of us. This is what we chose to do. It is our passion. We are not going to fail. And no matter where we end up in that spectrum, some days I just don't want to get up. I'm married to a person who has 2 businesses, my husband, Kent. I've never seen anyone in my life get up every single day fired up about work, no matter what is happening. I mean, he's a landscaper. We have a major drought. You're not allowed to plant grass. And he's like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to put pavers. I'm going to put, concrete, stamped, whatever. He comes up with a way around everything because that's what entrepreneurs do. There isn't a backup. There's nobody that's going to step in, swoop in and save us. It's us that save each other. So for me, if I didn't have my family, I don't know that I would have been able to just get up every day and grind away. And during the COVID crisis, there is no option. So for us, the core of our family is the core of our business. And that is something that I think I would never trade. I didn't realize how deep it went until I really started to get into it. And I think that's huge. And I'm so happy that I could teach that and share that to my kids, because I never worry about her. She knows how to work. She knows what the value of $1 is. She knows how to froth a latte beautifully. So she's set. I don't have to worry. It's incredibly moving as a parent to be able to say that.
Great, thank you. Adrian?
Okay, so in our family, from my perspective, it's pursue your passion, operate in integrity, support one another, learn without ceasing, treat people with hospitality, and empower people to reach their full potential. And so we apply these values in the way that we treat our guests. Our passion shows through the desire to provide our guests with awesome dining experiences from the time they approach us to the time they leave. We do this by the way we treat our staff. We treat them as family. We're always educating ourselves on new trends in the industry so that we can come back and give more to our guests and our employees. We also, support one another in the family. Whenever, someone has a project that they're working on, we're there. If they have a problem, we're there. And so that's how we've raised our girls to be there and support one another. And we honor our word, even when sometimes it costs us to do so. But if it's our word, then we have to stand by it.
Yes. So we both kind of took notes, and interestingly enough, I didn't want to look at hers. I don't know if she looked at mine, but some of the ones that she mentioned are exactly what I had written down: honesty, integrity, passion, and commitment to excellence. We're a family of faith. We believe in the principles of the Bible, and so we believe that we should treat others like we would like to be treated. But I think that even before I was even, following my faith religiously, there was something placed inside of me internally that said everybody has the right to be served. And I remember in the restaurant, we had a bag lady that saved up a lot of money, saved up enough money for 2 or 3 months to come in and eat. And people looked at her funny, but I escorted her to her table and made sure that she was well taken care of, and even escorted her out the restaurant. So that is my, that is my modus operandi. I've had also like people who were high officials in the county that wanted a favor because they were a party of 10 coming in and they wanted to have special treatment. And I would tell them, I'm sorry, but we booked for 2 weeks, and please, in the future, make a reservation. So we didn't kowtow to anybody. We treated everybody equally. And so that's how we tend to operate. I would say that there's certain things that are innate to you that, you do what you do because of what has been placed in you. And if you go against that, it just does not produce a good product at the end of the day. So yeah, those are the important family values we've been trying to teach to our daughters, and it's always a work in progress, but I can see that in them as well today.
Great, thank you. So the next question is really specific to Quinn. And so Quinn, what was it like to be raised by parents who both owned their own companies? And specifically, if you're willing and comfortable sharing, what were some of the challenges with that kind of growing up in a family of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so it was very, very interesting because I didn't know any different than what my parents have always been entrepreneurs. So I didn't know any different other than like seeing my friends and knowing that a lot of my friends got to go on vacation for a couple weeks out of the year. And I wanted to do that. And I was like, Mom, Dad, like, can we go on vacation? Like, we don't go on vacation. And they're like, well, like, we're working, we're busy, we have to work all the time. I'm like, okay, can we go on vacation? Please, like, please. Everyone else is doing it. Why can't we do it too? And so we finally took a little trip to Disneyland, and we would do that every year for like 2 or 3 days. And so that was kind of like, yay, we're going on vacation. And throughout that time, I was so frustrated because my parents were always on their phones, always working, even when we were on vacation. And looking back now, I know that if they weren't on their phones still working, that we wouldn't have been able to do that. And kind of, I know it was very frustrating when I was young because I just didn't understand like why we weren't like most families where they could just take time off work and kind of, spend time together like a normal 9-to-5 job would allow a family to do. So kind of looking back at it now, I know my parents spent a lot of time with me, and they could take off time when they needed to and when they wanted to spend more time with me and my sister. So I wouldn't change any of it at all. I think there were challenges of not understanding why we weren't like a normal family. But now that I'm older, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change any of my experiences because I've learned so much, and I've learned that my parents put in so much time and effort to spend with us while still keeping their businesses successful and afloat. So, yeah.
That's a good answer. It's a good answer.
You approve?
I know. It's a tough spot to be, to be a child of two entrepreneurs. Nobody has like the super solid job that you can, fall back on. We both work and we both have lots of employees. And so it gets to be challenging. But we always brought our kids with us, and we always talked about the business with the kids. And so sometimes probably too much, we probably shared too much stressful stuff, but they lived it with us. So
well, actually, yeah, it's very helpful because since I'm a global management major now, I'm learning a lot of business stuff, and I know a lot of it already. So I think that's very helpful, like to already have like personal exposure to a lot of stuff that we talk about in class. I can apply like what I've learned from my family kind of back to school. So I think that's very helpful.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We didn't completely screw up.
No.
All right. Nice.
That's great. And so then Linda, what are some of the short-term goals, knowing that it's maybe a little bit harder to have a 5 or 10 year plan right now, but as an entrepreneur, what are some of the short-term goals that are front of mind for you right now?
It's really been a lot about responding to COVID. When you're in a food industry, like Adrian and Michael and myself, it's changing constantly. And in California, restaurants never did reopen, so it's kind of retooling how you look at your business. And for short-term goals, when COVID hit and I closed my shop, it was the first time in 11 years that I had a 0 sale day. And it was so depressing. We're open every single day of the year because we're in a tourist economy. So literally, she's not kidding. We were there Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Easter. We never closed. And so to have that was really depressing and kind of demoralizing. I felt like everything was taken out of my control. So my short-term goals, and I didn't engage in it. I didn't do really the right thing when I look back on it. I should have just really attacked it, but I was just kind of sad. It was very emotional. So I think the short-term goals for me are to, number one, not do that again, to stay actively engaged. And I had to remember what it was like when I first opened my shop, which was in the recession. And I knew how to make a dime squeak. I knew how to stretch every single thing. We have like very little waste in our restaurant. It all becomes soup or it becomes cake pops or whatever we're doing that's spinning it around. So my short-term goals are always about what I can do today that's going to ensure tomorrow a little bit, making sure that my waste is under control, watching my costs for everything, making sure my employees are safe and happy and healthy. And right now it's all about keeping the customers feeling secure. And so I think my short-term goals are really survival a little bit and how do I excel in this challenging time. And my store, to be honest with you, is breaking records. It's never performed better than it is right now. And part of that is our location, changing the menu. It made me engage with the business in a totally different way. So short-term goals are to continue, breaking records and make sure that my staff is a team right with me through the whole process.
Thank you. Adrian, Michael?
Okay, short-term goal, is that the question? Okay, so, interestingly, when COVID hit, it threw a lot of people for a loop. And I believe that for those companies that were not sure about who they were, didn't have a strong sense of identity, they didn't have a strong sense of what their brand represented to their clientele or what the needs of the clientele were, they had a hard time pivoting and really responding in a way that resonated with their clientele. And so my short-term goal is to continue to provide marketing support for my family during these times, but also as a brand strategist, I want to help startups identify who they are and what problem they solve and who their target audience is, and help them to understand what it means to respond to a crisis. And so you don't just start throwing, spaghetti against the wall, but you really need to think about strategically how you're going to respond. The way you respond to COVID is going to be different to the way you respond to Black Lives Matter. But it also has to be consistent with your brand. And so that's really the message that I would like to bring to startups in the short term, which hopefully will help them with other things that may come about quite suddenly. And so they can quickly identify what it is that they need to do in a crisis so that they can, take care of, as Linda said, take care of their clientele.
Yes, and my short-term goals are, the COVID situation really helped me pivot and to think, hey, you have 40 years experience in the industry. You have been helping other entrepreneurs to the tune of 30, I think about 40 plus businesses I've coached and helped them get launched and that kind of thing. And so it became really apparent to me that I have some knowledge that I can share. So, and I have a specific way of sharing it, and it's integral to me. So if there's a platform where I can talk about it like this and like others, then hey, you know what? Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can help. And it's a process of giving more than taking, in my opinion. But and then as a result of that, I learned that I'm more of an inventor than anything. I mean, as a chef, we invent. I mean, I create plates that, make you not even want to eat it. It's just so pretty or whatever, but it's architecture, it's creativity, it's vision, and all those things. And so I started realizing that I also do that for other types of businesses. So I'm going to diversify. So I started the consulting business. I started selling my spice mixes and so forth. We're going to be doing cooking shows and all that. But I want to also get into other areas, tech companies and other areas, delivery systems and so forth. But in all of that, what I want to be is more deliberate about planning stages of my businesses. So before, as Adrian mentioned, we start off with a shoestring budget and we just kind of jumped into it. Well, I've learned and had enough scars now to know that, hey, you got to make it work on paper first. So I want to be more deliberate about the planning stages. I also want to be more strategic and have strategic partnerships. I believe that if you want to make it today, it's more about partnerships than it is about you being like a lone wolf. And then also I want to be able to diversify my portfolio so I have money in different areas, whether it be food, whether it be consulting, whether it be in tech world, and other areas as well.
All very exciting. You all have a lot of work to do. So thank you again for being here today. We have just a few questions left, but I want to remind everyone in the audience, if you have a question you'd like to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we look forward to being as dynamic as possible and answering any questions you might have. But really kind of shifting the conversation a bit, there's this larger dialogue that comes up a lot around this idea of work-life balance. Sometimes you'll maybe hear even work-life blend, and how often with entrepreneurs, it's just not possible to balance everything you need to do in work and in life and in family. So this question is, have you created any intentional boundaries within your work? And what do those look like if you have? And if you haven't, maybe why haven't you? Because there's not a right answer to this. It's just really kind of a question of curiosity.
For me, I am not good at creating boundaries. It's not a skill that I have in terms of my business, because I drive my business out of my passion and it doesn't get separated from me. So I do take it home. It is part of our family. I ask my daughters all the time and my husband their advice on things that happen. How would you approach this? I have an employee that needs this, and what can I do? And we approach things kind of all together. So I've never really apologized for not separating too much, because my work is my life in a good way. I don't feel like it's a ball and chain or anything that it's really difficult. I'm sorry I couldn't take you on a Disney cruise, but we do try to spend as much time as possible together, but it's in usually the context of work. But our work is fun. I mean, we make coffee, we bake cupcakes. I mean, that's a kind of a cool, it's kind of a cool way to grow up. And when we take vacations, which to us are, I'm trying other people's coffee, I'm trying other people's cupcakes, I'm kind of always engaged in that idea of work. So I haven't really felt the need to do too many boundaries, because I love what I do so much that it's part of who I am.
Great. Adrian?
Well, we found that we had to establish boundaries, because Chef Michael and I are so passionate about what we do and coming up with different business ideas. And we found that we could literally burn each other out with ideas. And I'll wake up in the morning and he'll be like, taste this, it's a new dish, he wants me to try it. Or, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll either have a great idea while he's just waking up, or vice versa. And so we found that even when we try to, date, when we're on a date, we're still talking about the business. And so the business became so all consuming. Even on vacation, it was always a working vacation. And we've been married for 35 years. And so we finally had to take a step back and really start to establish some boundaries where we made basically refrain from talking business after a certain hour, before a certain hour, agreed to schedule meetings to flesh out ideas. And so this way we can have more productive meetings, because we would talk about business at the table with the girls, and they got tired of that after a while, because their friends' parents were talking about fun things and doing fun things, and we got the label of, you guys are so formal, you're always talking business, that's all you talk about is business. And, you know, we weren't the cool parents because it was always business. They wanted to do some fun things. And so we had to learn to kind of scale back. And so what Chef Michael and I do is we schedule staycations like once a quarter. We take vacations at least once a year. We give each other me time. And since we've been working at home with COVID, we have a long-standing lunch date every day where we don't talk business. We might watch something fun on TV. But this way, it's helped us to, you know, keep the spark, you know, on the personal level, but at the same time, keep the passion on the business level. So it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, amen to that. It's a work in progress. One of the most recent things with COVID, because all of a sudden we both were working from home, and it was like, I'm like, oh, I wake up, oh, I can see you. I can see you at 9 o'clock. I can see you at 10 o'clock. I can see you at 11 o'clock. Before, where it was different, I wouldn't see her till 5 or 6 o'clock. And so anytime I have an idea, I just can run in and say, but she started saying, no, you can't do that. And so we established this thing where if the green ribbon is on her doorknob, then I can't disturb her. And if it's not, then I can at least knock on the door. Me, I'm a little different. You can disturb me while I'm sauteing shrimp and doing this in this other hand, and you could disturb. I kind of handle those things based on what I do pretty naturally. But you know, what I had to recognize the fact that she processes information differently than I do. So she's more cerebral when it comes to, you know, looking at marketing structures and data analytics and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, can you cook it? I mean, because if you can't cook it, it's not worth it. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, so some of the things that I talked about, you know, the green ribbon on the door. But one of the things that really helped me, because I'm also a consultant, had to really, you know, put some boundaries on was I started using Calendly. And Calendly is like, people say, you know, what's your availability? And I'll say, here's my calendar. And it'll just spew it out there. And I don't have to talk about it because they book me now. So, and if I decide that I want to, like, I just need a break for a couple of hours, I can just go to Outlook and just say, busy during this period of time and nobody will book me. And so I get to control my schedule. My 21-year-old said to me, she said, Dad, she said, if you encourage negative behavior, it's going to continue to happen. Because I started getting to the point where clients would call me at like 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And it was like, she says, you got to set the parameters. And so that's what we're doing. Like I said, it's a working in progress, but using technology to take care of, you know, parameter setting is important. And then, as Adrian said, regular scheduled business meetings where we can get those ideas flushed out. And importantly, I think is recording that information. Like I use Asana to record every business idea that I have and every meeting that we have. And that helps us to say it's already out of our head and it's on paper.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate that the answers were also different, right? Because not any one story is going to be exactly the same. And so this dialogue is really important in that there might be some insights we can take or some thoughts of, I haven't considered that before, but it's always what's uniquely working for you and your family and your situation, and also the type of work that you're doing. So it might be that you need different boundaries as a consultant than you need when you're focused on your own business. And so figuring out those pieces and whatever makes sense. So thank you all for sharing. Our last question formally is just kind of what advice you have for others as it relates to family or business. And again, an invitation to anyone watching, feel free to ask a question, but also an invitation to you all. So Adrian, Michael, Linda, Quinn, you did not know each other before today. So if after giving your kind of final words of wisdom, you have questions for each other, I think we have time for that as well before we end the dialogue today. So
I think you want to start?
Sure, I can start this one. So I think as a child of two entrepreneurs, I think you should go for it. I think that's my advice. I think if you're not sure you want to bring your family into entrepreneurship, I think it is a good idea. I think ultimately your kids are going to learn a lot. It sounds like from Michael and Adrian, it seems like their kids have also learned a lot from them and their business experience. So I think ultimately it is a good idea, and I think you should just go for it.
It's good. I think if you're passionate about what you do, your kids get it. You know, they understand and they thrive on that passion that we get up every day loving what we do. We get up every day wanting to improve it, and work hard at doing that. And for us, a level of service to our community is something that is ingrained kind of in our family. So I don't think there's any better way to do that. I think it's just in kind of, our operational model. And I love it. I could not imagine raising my two girls to be strong, smart, respectful, courteous, where I never have to worry about either one of them, because I know they're instilled with those kind of values. So I absolutely would encourage people, if you have a passion, a really strong passion, because it's got to come from within, or it's just work. But I don't mind working so hard, because to me, it's not work.
Thank you. Adrian?
I definitely believe that having children as part of your business is a great idea. It's a great opportunity for them to learn and really apply hands-on what they're learning in school. They can touch it, feel it, because they've lived it. And so they can learn that lesson a lot better. I do believe it's important to set aside time where you can have fun with your family, sort of like, that vacation you take with your children, because it's a reward for the hard work that we've done. Also share the business successes with them, but also the failures, and share the lessons learned. As well as one of the things that we would often do is, after we do festivals, we'd have a family debrief after the events, and we would solicit their feedback, because each person sees things from a different perspective, but also each of us were in different positions. And so they oftentimes brought back great feedback and solutions for change moving forward. And so I think business is great because it teaches them how to manage money, which is very important. And the other thing too is try to, in addition to teaching them different skill sets, also try to align their skill sets with the position that they're in, if that's an opportunity. But naturally learning all parts of the business is great. And just try to make it fun, and you speak about passion, Linda, and that's where you can make it. If you have that passion, then you can infuse that sense of fun in the business.
Yes, and until Linda's point, it's such a character building opportunity for the young people, for my young people. And a lot of times I never tried to shield them from certain situations. For example, we did a festival one time, and we had like two lines that were 2 city blocks long, and someone actually came and cursed out my daughter. And it's my daughter, so you would understand if I got a little upset, but I just said that I gave her some time to get to the side and to get herself together, and then she came back. But I didn't try to protect her from that situation. I think that built character in her. And then we talked about it afterwards as well. The other thing is that I think that I wrote a couple things here. First of all, I think that you should understand that your family may or may not be interested in your business. Okay, and ultimately my girls were not. And that's okay, because I got some good labor out of them, and I paid them too. But when they decided what they wanted to do, I had to, sort of let it go. But sometimes I do feel that one day it's going to all come full circle. Okay. The other thing is that it doesn't mean that they will not be great entrepreneurs in another business. The act of being in business doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in the restaurant business, but you're an entrepreneur. Also, I think that I found, and so this is one thing I wanted to really describe. It's very important when you're running a family business that you have this distinguishable responsibilities. There has to be a CEO, and there has to be a CMO, and there has to be all these different people that have different positions. I always described it as such: when you have a business and you have an organizational chart, you should have all these charts, these different positions available, but you may be doing 7 different jobs until you find someone to fill them. But you don't want to have a two-headed monster, which is people, 2 husband and wife working against each other. Somebody has to make the final decision and take that responsibility. The other thing is too that you treat your family with respect, and then when working, don't show favoritism. So don't try to favor them over a regular employee, nor do you call them out all the time, which I made a lot of mistakes in that area. And you call them out in front of the employees, and then they feel bad, and then they think, you know, you're treating them worse than everybody else. And then don't hold them to a higher standard, which feeds into what I just said. Just because they're family, treat them as normal employees. And that's all I have.
Pretty sure we saw Linda asking Quinn, did I hold you to a different standard? I'm going to be like, in real time, let me think of what you just said and apply it in my own context. So that's so great. Thank you all so much for your perspectives, your stories, your wisdom. If anyone does want to ask a question, feel free to unmute, and you can do so for each other. But otherwise, just thank you so much for being here today.
I just wanted to comment on one thing Michael just said that was so profound, because we talk about it all the time, that the business is my business. It was my passion. It was what I wanted to do. I never intended for it to be a legacy for my kids, a burden for them to ever have to bear. You know what I mean? If they want it, they can have it. If they don't, I'll help them do their own whenever they're ready, if they choose to go down that path. So it's not something I think that either of my kids are really interested in taking over, even though it's super fun, but it's super fun for me, not necessarily for them. So I think that is an excellent point. And if you are in a family business, I always see like the trucks driving by, you know, Carl and Sons, or, you know, whatever that is. And I think, oh, that's kind of cool, but I hope the Sons really wanted to do whatever their family business is doing. So I think that was a great point.
Also, could I share something else too? I think there was a question about how do I measure success? And I measure success by the lives that I touch, by the family commitments that I make, and by the legacies that I leave. I think, Linda, you talked about legacy. Legacy is not just money. It's not just, you know, family traits or what have you, but it has to do with a seed that you plant in your family that can grow, and you don't know what direction it's going to grow in, but you're just there to plant the seed. And then, and it even works outside of the family. I can tell you, like you talked about the cheers environment you guys have. I mean, I guarantee you can, in your mind's eye, can see, you know, that guy on that bench or that stool or that chair, and who he is and how he acts, and it's just what it's all about, you know. And so legacies are something that I believe you don't really finish it until it's done, you know, but you're planting, and you're continually planting as you go.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's such a perfect note for us to end on today. So as mentioned, this is one of the ASU Family Weekend activities for this weekend. So we're so grateful that you spent an hour of your day in this conversation. And we also want to make sure that for anyone that is participating in the Forks Up Family Phrase Challenge, you know what question or what are our secret words to enter into that. So if you aren't aware, there is an opportunity this week to win some possible prizes. And so the Forks Up Family Phrase Challenge is something you get access to by attending a variety of events this weekend and then submitting your entry by Monday, November 9th, because we are already in the month of November, if you can believe it. But if you go to the next slide, we'll actually show what our words are for this particular session that will help you know the answer to the riddle that you will hopefully be able to uncrack. So something a little bit fun and an unexpected twist and into the event, but we appreciate you all so much for being here today. Chef Michael, Adrian, Linda, Quinn, thank you for sharing your stories and spending your time with us on this Friday evening. And then if anyone else has any questions relating to how ASU supports entrepreneurship, please know to visit entrepreneurship.asu.edu. There's plenty of ways to connect with us. So if you'd like to follow us on social media or in other spaces, feel free to do so. But we hope you have a great weekend and we thank you for being here today. With that, have a great rest of your day.